So in November of 2018, I got my hands on some magic mushrooms. At this point in my life, I had only drank a handful of times and equally as much dabbled in the realm of weed. This would be my first encounter with psychedelics. So there I was, sitting in the back of my friend's car at this lookout one evening, and it was me in the back, my friend who we'll call A in the driver's seat, and two other girls from our class with us. The three of them decided to smoke while I watched and waited for these mushrooms to kick in. I should mention that nobody told me what to expect. All I knew about psychedelics was that they made you hallucinate, but the implications of that are a bit vague if you've never experienced it before. In my head, I'm thinking flying pigs. So the beginning stage of this trip is a bit fuzzy. I actually don't remember eating the shrooms at all. Eventually I just find myself staring at the moon, and then I noticed the hoodie I was wearing was extra red, like shiny fire truck red. I remember briefly stepping outside at one point and being in total awe of the valley beneath me. I couldn't tell if it was the moonlight or just my perception, but I could see everything so clearly despite it being sometime around 10 to 12 at night. Now, I couldn't tell you the events that led to us eventually leaving, but the next thing I know, my friend and I are driving back into town to follow the girls safely back home. All I can remember is that the lighting from each streetlight we passed under was extra orange. It felt like an entire rave was taking place within the car, and I was the only one dancing. At this moment, I won the gold medal for the Tweaking Olympics because I was bouncing in the passenger seat like a fucking lunatic. My friend driving was chuckling at me, but there was a distinct hint of concern in his voice from how geeked out I was. At some point we stopped in a little parking lot to say goodbye to the girls before we parted ways. A and I were then off to our next mission, which was to go pick up a friend who wanted to smoke and chill as well. We arrived at his house shortly thereafter and waited in the car for him to appear. We sat there and A pulled out his phone, like a normal human. But there I was next to him, just completely enthralled by this tree in the distance. Despite all my efforts, I could not focus directly on this tree. My eyes would literally flick between both sides of the tree, so I was always just staring slightly past it. It was frustrating me so much that the only thing to snap me out of this was a cat that walked into my line of vision. So naturally, my immediate instinct was to get out of the car and attempt my best at my summoning jutsu skills. My friend warned me not to, as it was not my cat and I was very high. Little did he understand that I was already spiritually bonded with this cat. The next thing he knew, it was in his back seat. Now, if you love something, you let it go. So I said bye to my feline friend, and he was promptly replaced with our human friend for whom we had been waiting. It was time to set sail on our next adventure, which turned out to be going right back to that same lookout. So we arrived, and the boys wasted no time to pull out the weed. So you have a clear image of what's about to happen. I'm in the front passenger seat. A, who's in the driver's seat, passes the bong to our buddy in the back seat. All is well and quiet until A looks out his side window and suddenly freaks out in terror. A mutters something to the effect of, "What the fuck was that?" The two of them are both looking up at the sky through their windows. I try my best to look through the front window and A's side window, but I can't see anything. If I remember correctly, A described what he saw as an oval light flashing right above the car and then promptly disappearing. I was a bit freaked out, but my curiosity was stronger. I opened up the sunroof and stuck my head out. Now, I didn't see the same oval light that they saw, but I did see two rainbow beams of light trailing off into the night sky that quickly faded away. Now, I'm not sure what that was, but it looked a lot like two beams of energy left behind from a ship shooting off into warp drive. A kicked his shit into high gear, and we hauled ass out of there. I don't remember quite what for, but our buddy in the back asked us to drive to his brother's house to pick up something. When we got there and waited for him, I was yet again met with another tree in his front yard. You truly don't understand what it is about trees that hippies love so much until you experience the effect of these substances for yourself. I locked in on this tree for several minutes without talking. I could see every crack and groove in this tree dancing beautifully, absolutely mesmerizing me. I can't explain it, but these movements I was bearing witness to, I understood as some sort of language. I just knew the tree was trying to communicate with me. Just when I felt I could translate it, our friend had gotten back into the car and we started driving away. Now, I don't know why I did this, but I yelled "hey" out the window, I guess to let that fucker know I was onto him. My friends had no idea what was going on. Towards the end of this trip, our last destination I remember was another smaller lookout near our buddy's place. We pulled up to this heap of mossy rocks that immediately turned into a pile of cats when A turned the headlights on. I just remember laughing and finding it so cool. At some point I exited the car to get closer and my friends got out too. We looked up and dead ass we saw the Illuminati triangle surrounding the moon. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the clouds did create the faintest formation of a triangle. The three of us were certainly high enough to believe any conspiracy theory at this point, so it spooked us enough to get back in the car. I turned around and saw our buddy in the back with his head down looking at his phone. I impulsively just started petting and massaging his head because his hair felt so amazing to touch. I'm sure he didn't mind because he just kept scrolling on his phone while we shared stories and socialized. I'm assuming at some point we dropped him off at his house, but I literally have zero recollection of what happened the rest of the night. I don't remember if A dropped me back home at my house or I stayed over at his house, but that's the story of the first time I did mushrooms and we met aliens. I enjoyed mushrooms so much that to this day, it remains my favorite drug I've ever tried. And this amazing experience ultimately compelled me to explore it a lot more and create many more stories like this one. If you'd like to hear more about those stories, consider subscribing. I'd love to hear about your mushroom experiences in the comments. So thank you guys for watching, and God bless.